How we doing today, YouTube? How we doing? How we doing? All right. Now, you guys are here. Let's get the radio guys in. All right. So much to talk about in the sports world. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to SWSJU Radio. My name is Logan, and this is the Log Show. Usually on Tuesdays, but I'm here on this Thursday morning after that snowstorm on Tuesday. Big sports show here for those of you who usually aren't listening to me at this time of day. I know it's different, but here I am, and I am excited to be here. My, oh my, obviously, the biggest topic in sports happened last week. Super Bowl 58. And my God, did we get a nice game. We got a classic, if I say the least. The Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes have done it again, folks. They are your Super Bowl 58 champions. They win the game 25-22 in overtime. They get their back-to-back championships, the first back-to-back champions since the 2004-2005 New England Patriots. And congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, before I get into the game specifically, I just want to talk about the Chiefs and their season really as a whole. When we really break it down, they went through a lot this year, this Kansas City Chiefs team. They really did. You break it down, they got off week one already to that bad start with the loss to Detroit. And then, a lot of people talked about this going throughout the year that the Chiefs weren't, a lot of people felt like the Chiefs of this year, going throughout the year, were not the Chiefs of normal. They came out and lost to the Lions week one that a lot of people didn't expect. You know what I'm saying? They lose to the Broncos early in the year, in early October at one point, where a lot of people got scared. And around that time, too, they lost. They go on this little streak here mid-season, and I think it was after the Eagles game, I want to say this. Maybe it was after the Packers game. Early December, mid-November. A lot of people were really talking about the Chiefs at this time. They lost to the Broncos, who didn't look good, went on a run after that, definitely, but at the time did not look good. Then you beat the Dolphins at home, but then you lose to the Eagles at home. 2 weeks later, you lose to the Packers. You lose back-to-back games because you end up losing to the Bills. You got a lot going on there if you're Kansas City going into week, 16, 17? You know what I mean? I believe they were sitting at the 4 seed at the time, like the 3 seed, but they weren't looking good. A lot of people were worried about them. I apologize for that. But a lot of people were scared. Scared of. This wasn't the Chiefs of normal. Travis Kelce was on a slump at the time. And I don't have the ability or the technology on the live stream to pull up the clip. I haven't been able to find the episode. But so take my word for it if you want. If not, claim that I'm lying. I really don't care what you do. But I remember saying this at one point. I didn't claim the Chiefs were going to win the Super Bowl. I even went into the playoffs saying I had a feeling it was going to be the Bills. I'm not going to say I was completely 100% sure, even through the slump, that the Chiefs were going to win the Super Bowl. I had my doubts as well. I'm not going to sit here and lie. But I do remember saying this, that personally, I find it impossible to count that team out at any time. It's the same thing like when Tom Brady was on was playing. Pat Mahomes has that same effect of writing this team off. Just always seems like a bad idea. It never seems like a good choice to sit there and write this team off ever. People did it last year because Joe Burrow and them was doing so well, or the Bills were doing so well. Joe Burrow beat him in the AFC Championship 2 years ago. So going into last year, the whole Burrowhead thing, that whole arc, and that whole storyline. And now this year in the playoffs, week after week, going into Miami. Oh, or home Miami. Oh, Miami's good. Tyreek Hill revenge game. Proved it again. Going into Buffalo. Oh, Patrick Mahomes' first road playoff game. Got it done again. Going into Baltimore. Oh, Lamar Jackson's the MVP. This defense is unreal. This Ravens team, they're going to get over the hump. Proved it again. And then went into the Super Bowl with everybody rooting against him. Everybody rooting against him and Travis and Taylor and the whole gang and the whole Chiefs kingdom. And they did it again. Patrick Mahomes has proven time and time again he's going to get the job done. Stop doubting him. Stop it. I even said it last week when I was talking about the game and I was predicting the game. I go, there's no way I could pick against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. It's impossible for me to do. It really is. And he proved it again. He proved it this year after a rough, little bit. Or they had a little bit of a rough patch. A time where you lose 3 out of 4 or 3 out of 5. A lot of people were scared. I was scared. I even said it. But I do remember also saying this, that at the end of the day, the Chiefs are that team. And when it comes to late December, early January, they're going to put it together. They're that veteran type of team that they're going to consistently put it together late season. And mid-November, early December is those last weeks you really have to get those mistakes out. You saw it in the opposite sense. Before I get into the game again, you saw it in the opposite sense when you bring up the Eagles. Eagles had an amazing early season. They get that win over Kansas City, and then teams started making adjustments. They slowed down. They got tired. A couple players got injured. And all of a sudden, the Eagles go into the playoffs, losing the division, and they lose to Tampa Bay in the wild card round without even having a home playoff game. Like, that team was 10-1 at one point. So, to ride on these teams week 3, week 4, week 7, you don't know until you see someone play a playoff game. And the minute I saw the Chiefs play a playoff game this year, I was like, oh, they're back. They're back. Nothing changed. Whether they're on the road, whether they're at home, I knew after the Miami game that this was going to be the team to run through. And it was. Nonetheless, like, Baltimore and Buffalo gave them good games. I'm not going to say, and both of them had chances to win. But it's just, the football gods love Kansas City. I mean, yeah. Now, getting to the game specifically, we had the Chiefs. I don't want to say that Kansas City necessarily lost this game. You know what I mean? I don't want to say that at all. I don't feel like Kansas City lost this game. I think that, San Francisco lost this game. Correct me. I believe that Kansas City won. San Francisco didn't lose. You know what I mean? Yes, there were mistakes made. Yeah, a lot of people in the media and stuff are talking about. Sorry about this. A lot of people in the media are talking about them not knowing the overtime rules, like Juszczyk not knowing the overtime rules, and stuff like that. Yeah, that's a little bit interesting. I mean, you could throw that out there, but a lot of the game was even. Like San Francisco still scored. Their defense still had a chance for a stop, and they gave up a touchdown. Also, like, San Francisco had a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter. First, in overtime, there's a huge third down. I thought Kansas City was going to shut them out, kick the field goal, and win the game. There's a huge third down where they call that holding call, 3rd and long in overtime. So Kansas City, both sides got favorable stuff and negative stuff. I feel like it was a very evenly called game. I feel like it was a very even game when you really break it down. Like you look at that first quarter, both teams had red zone fumbles on drives they looked like they were going to score. Um, both teams had 2 turnovers. Like these teams, when I was looking at the stats, very even statistically, and the momentum was like that too. The momentum was constantly switching back and forth. As much as the first half was low scoring, it was constantly switching back and forth, constantly. No one was able to control the game really at any point that I feel like Kansas City or San Francisco was in complete control of what was going on the field. And yeah, it was a great game out of Kansas City. You know, Patrick Mahomes does what he does best. Absolutely unreal. I remember one of my friends who not a huge football guy, so I don't expect him to like know that Patrick Mahomes is as much of a killer as he is, but he looks at me when they get the ball back, 2 minutes left, just under 2 minutes left. I think it was a minute 58, 2 timeouts after San Francisco kicks that field goal. And there's a minute 58, 2 timeouts. And my friend was like, yo, like, I don't know, because his family's from Kansas City, so he is a Chiefs fan, does have an excuse, not a bandwagon type thing. But going back to the point, he was like, yo, I'm scared. Like, we might choke. Like, what if we choke? I looked at my friend with the straightest face I've had all season. I go, Pat Mahomes don't choke. That man don't choke. That man don't know what choking is. Doesn't know the definition of choking. Him and under pressure are best friends. It's insane. It is insane. Honestly, it's scarier than Brady sometimes, but I'm not going to get into that. What I am going to get into is, like I said, it's baffling how even keeled they are, like how little pressure he feels in these big moments consistently. Had a great game, threw a rare interception, first postseason interception, I think 3 years. Had over 300 yards, had 333, 2 touchdowns, wins the Super Bowl MVP. And I mean, I think everyone's saying this, and I don't want to just sound like that dude who's sitting here, you know what I mean, on his knees for Mahomes, but you got to look at the eye test, the statistic test, every test you could give to a player. And I know it's easy to hate greatness. I've talked about this my whole life with the LeBron Jordan argument, the LeBron Kobe's arguments I had growing up. And I hit a point in my life, I think it was around middle school, because I just became such a big sports fan, where I took a step back and I was like, yo, why don't we stop hating greatness? Like, why hate greatness? Why not appreciate it while it's here? You know what I mean? I used to love to hate LeBron, and I used to argue that Kevin Durant was better than him in their prime when he was in OKC in that prime, and like when I was in middle school, and then it clicked with me one day where it was like, no, bro, like yeah, Kevin Durant's great too. But LeBron could be great as well. Like they could all be great. You don't got to compare them and contrast them and hate the greatness that you're seeing. Like I'll use that basketball argument I was just saying. I appreciate Kevin Durant and LeBron James. I think Kevin Durant's the greatest scorer to ever play basketball. I also love LeBron. I think LeBron's one of the best players to ever play basketball. I think he's the second greatest of all time. So to not appreciate those two while they're here would have hurt. Like when I was looking back at it, I realized when I'm older, like, yeah, as a fan, I'm going to hate these certain moments. I'm going to hate, you know what I mean? As a Knicks fan, I'm going to hate that whole Trae Young thing. As a Saints fan, I'll always have disdain for the Vikings franchise after what happened in Minneapolis. I always have a little bit of disdain for the Rams after what happened in that NFC Championship. I always have a little disdain for Brady after coming and killing our franchise, closing our Super Bowl window. But to say that I hated Tom Brady his whole career, I'd be wrong, because I took a step back one day and I was like, wow, like this guy's damn good. And that's what I want to tell people to do with Mahomes is like, I understand you get tired of the same person winning. We used to say when LeBron, like back to the basketball thing, LeBron in the finals. We used to say it with Tom and and the Super Bowl and and all those teams, all those dynasties of Alabama national championships. We all get tired of it, and we all love to hate them. But nonetheless, if you're going to break it down, Patrick Mahomes has been starting in the National Football League for 6 seasons. Only 6 years. Remember, it took Tom Brady 20 years, 21, I guess, but 20 years to get 7. By year 6 as a starter, I think Tom had 3. I want to say around, if I remember correctly. It was either 2 or 3. No one else has done that. I think maybe Steve Young got 2 in his first couple of years starting. But, yeah, like, just appreciate what we have here. 3 Super Bowls, MVP in all 3 Super Bowl wins, if I remember correctly. 3 Super Bowl championships, 2 NFL MVPs, 4 AFC championships, 5 AFC championship appearances. More playoff wins than Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Terry Bradshaw. Like, just appreciate him while he's here, because he's great. He's just great. There's no other word to describe Patrick Mahomes but great. And he proved it again in the Super Bowl and got himself another ring. He played great. Travis Kelce also had a great game. He had a great second half. Honestly, was really slow in that first half. And in the first half, like 1 yard. Came out in that second half, had 93 yards, had an absolute ridiculous second half. Had an amazing fourth quarter. 74 of his 93 yards came in the fourth quarter, which is insane to me. Absolutely big-time player. I say it all the time. Big-time players make big-time plays and big-time moments. Travis Kelce's that. He's a big-time player. He made big-time plays and big-time moments. It's that simple. You guys want to hate him for being in love? Let the man live. He's having fun. His brother is the national mascot of drunkenness, and it's great. Who doesn't love seeing Jason Kelce in overalls and a luchador mask? Make that a team logo. Put it on a jersey. Shout out Jason Kelce. What a guy. What a dude. What a dude's dude. Yeah. I mean, the Chiefs team played great. Harrison Butker, shout out him. 4 for 4 in a Super Bowl is not easy. 57 yards was one of them, too. That's a new Super Bowl record. That's insane. Super Bowl record was broken twice. Shout out Moody for hitting a 55-yarder earlier in the game. In the Super Bowl. That's crazy. The pressure you have for to hit that kick. I don't care if it's first kick of the game, last kick of the game. The pressure to hit a 57-yard field goal in the Super Bowl is insane. To even call that out of both coaches, the 55 and the 57-yarder, is such confidence in your kickers. Shout out to the coaches. Speaking of that, shout out Steve Spagnuolo. What a game. What a game from a coaching's perspective out of Spagnuolo. Stevie Spags, man. One player I want to specifically draw to that I think everyone can remember that just had me in like, wow, like just ran so perfectly was obviously from the TV angle. It's so easy to see. And for those of you who know NFL rules, I can't show the clip on the live stream either, so I'm just going to describe it either way. But I will use my hands for you guys watching visually. The blitz, the McDuffie blitz on the edge there on that third down, where he looks like he's about to blitz the edge, bounces in, blitz inside the tackle, blitzes right inside the C gap, and you kind of see him creeping up from the TV angle, and you could see the blitz. But the way that was disguised and the way it was ran by the Chiefs defense, by shout out McDuffie for having a big game, but that big sack was huge. When you break that down and you look at that play specifically, that was the stop that won the Chiefs the game because it holds San Francisco only to a field goal, makes that last drive easier to just chip shot it in as Harrison Butker, just just chip shot it in and move on. Go to overtime, go win this game if you're Kansas City, hopefully. But yeah, that blitz was amazing. Just the way he did disguising the defenses, able to get pressure on Brock Purdy, even though they weren't able to get that many sacks. Just Brock Purdy, it never seemed like Brock Purdy was sitting in the pocket for way too long. And if he was, he was still getting pressured because there were all these coverage sacks. Like, not coverage sacks, but just such well coverage downfield. Kittle was practically obsolete. If I want to get his exact stat line, I'll pull it up real quick. I have it here. Kittle had 2 receptions, 4 yards. Like, being able to take a weapon like Kittle out of the game, for the most part, also taking Deebo Samuel out of the game. He had, 6 touches for 40 yards. So when you really break it down, the only weapon that was able to get going out of San Francisco was Christian McCaffrey, and that's not a fault to San Francisco. It's more of a compliment to Kansas City when you really look back at that game. Like, Deebo was getting open when he could, but a lot of it they needed to check it down, just give it to McCaffrey. There was a lot of need. I needed to just dump it. I don't have time. Like, really. Yeah. On the San Francisco side, CMC did show up. He had 160 total yards on 30 touches, 22 carry, 80 of which was on the ground, a receiving touchdown. So a great game out of CMC in his first Super Bowl nonetheless. Definitely did his part. Brock Purdy did well, didn't turn the ball over at all. They caused a Mahomes interception. Purdy did very well at taking care of the ball, did not turn the ball over, had 225 yards with a touchdown. So definitely a great game out of the 49ers offense. Had 382 yards, which was the most of any team against Kansas City all year. The only other team that came close was one team tied it when they lost to Green Bay, and I think that was week 10 if I want to put a number on the week. But whatever week they played Green Bay was in early December. The Green Bay also, ironically enough, coincidentally had the same exact number, had 280 or 382. But that is the most given up by a Chiefs defense all year. Like I said, they caused the first Pat Mahomes interception in 3 years, caused Pacheco's second fumble of all year. Not only was it only his second fumble, it was in the red zone. So that was a huge play. You got the Jawan Jennings play that was drawn up beautifully. And shout out Jawan Jennings. I think if San Francisco got out of that game, he's probably Super Bowl MVP. Only player ever to throw and catch a touchdown in a Super Bowl. Apparently. I don't know. That's a weird stat to me. Because, was Nick Foles? Because that was a touchdown, right? Or was that a 2-point? I thought that was a touchdown. If that was a touchdown, then did Foles not throw for a touchdown that whole Super Bowl? Because I saw that the broadcast said that, and I tried to do the research. I couldn't really find it. I was kind of busy with homework this week, if I'm being honest. But yeah, like so either the first or second player to throw and catch for a touchdown in the Super Bowl, nonetheless, is a great feat to accomplish. You know what I mean? So yeah, San Francisco did not play a bad game at all. They really played well. They really did. Like, the defense played well. Fred Warner showed up. They were missing Trey Greenlaw after that crazy incident. That terrified me, man. To think that an Achilles could just go like that fast. Like, that was so routine. For anyone who's played a down of football in their life, honestly, a down of any sport like that, like, you've all done a little hop before you run onto the field. You know what I mean? Before you sub in soccer, before you take before you take the field in baseball. You know what I mean? Before you go in football, before you sub in lacrosse. Well, no matter the sport, we've all done that little. If you were watching the game and saw the Trey Greenlaw injury, we've all done that little hop before we start our jog out onto the field. Every athlete has done it, and to think that someone whose body is built at the best physique possible, every calorie is counted, every weight is counted. Like, the nutrition in the NFL and the body science is so deep these days. To think that somebody whose body is studied and worked on consistently, their Achilles can go on that. How do you think I feel? Because I'm not that athletic. My body is not made for that. You're telling me I could just be like walking back court and my Achilles could just be like, nah, never mind, I'm done. Like, that's terrifying. That's absolutely terrifying, man. Like, that's gotta scare you guys. Like, that's gotta scare everyone else, right? Seeing that Trey Greenlaw injury. And I hope for a speedy recovery. Is there a time for it to happen? I guess it's the Super Bowl, yes and no, because on one sense, there's no more weeks. But on the other sense, there's the biggest game of your entire life. So it's hard to really even it out. But nonetheless, it was a very, very good game, I think. And I think it was a very good offensive game, even though that it was a tale of two of halves. Second half was very offensive. First half was very defensive, and I love that. I love that we got a little bit of everything. We got two of the best defenses in the league. They were able to show up. We also had two of the best offenses in the league that ended up showing up at the end of the day. You know, and it all ended with, again, a dude who was traded to the Chiefs for like a sixth or a seventh round. Last year it was Kadarius Toney running corn dog, as Andy Reid said. This year it was Mecole Hardman running corn dog, and it worked both times. Way to watch film, San Francisco. I mean, a lot of people say, I remember someone saying this, it was like, who's Mecole Hardman? Oh, on the Jets, one reception. And I agree with that this year. But you guys forget that he already has 2 rings. He just won his 3rd. He's been there for every Chiefs Super Bowl, man. Every single one. He won 2 of them, left trying to get his money, and it didn't work out. And the Jets were nice enough to ship him back to KC where he fits perfectly. He's a good player and fits into that Andy Reid scheme perfectly. Fits into it perfectly. Knows it well. Was able to hop in right away. Knows it well. Had a slightly good playoffs. Not a great playoff, slightly good. Shows up in the Super Bowl. Gets his 3rd ring with the team he was drafted to back in 2017. So don't forget about that. Don't knock Mecole Hardman like he doesn't know what he's doing on the Chiefs. Like he just got his 1st ring, like he was just shipped there. You serious? Are you serious? Look up a thing or two. Dude's a dog. Dude is a dog. Dude's a dog. Yeah. I mean, it hurts. That's the end of the football season, man. Only 202 more days until football comes back. That's it. 202. 202 days. I think we could all get through that, right? Until football comes back. Speaking of football coming back, that's what I was trying to look up before when I got a little distracted. But now that we're talking about it, before I get into 298, which I'm very excited about, by the way, 298 this weekend is going to be fun, man. Like, there were a couple fighters I didn't know, a couple fighters I didn't have time to get around for watching film. Like, there's one fight, the last fight on the main card, 2 dudes I honestly don't know a lot about, Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov. I've heard of Kopylov. A lot of people like him. I haven't seen much of either of those fighters. But nonetheless, 298 is going to be very, very exciting. I can't wait to get into that in a little bit. As I wait for this to load, I just so as of today, as of February 15th, 2024, the favorites for Super Bowl 59 are the San Francisco 49ers at plus 500. Then you got Kansas City at plus 650. You got Baltimore plus 900. Detroit at plus 12. Buffalo at plus 1200. Cincinnati at plus 1500. And Dallas at plus 1500. A couple other teams throw in there that are high odds. If you guys do like betting, just to throw these out there, because I just wanted to look at these before I moved on from football. Green Bay at plus 2,500. I don't hate. Same thing with Houston at the same number. The Chargers at plus 30,000. Plus 3,000. I don't hate at all either. As a Saints fan, I will take the Saints at plus 7,500. I doubt it hits. Bettors do not touch that. Other teams I can maybe see going on. Colts at plus 5,000. I don't hate. I don't know what the get to playoff odds are there, but like that one's not terrible. There's a couple of sneaky late teams that could definitely go on a run, like a you know what I mean, like a Cinderella run. But who knows? Who knows? We got draft season. Combine is, I think, next week, maybe the week after. And then Combine starts draft season. Draft season's the guessing game as it is. Free agency starts. We get to a point of football season where, yes, I'm a football fan, so those of you who are first-time listeners, when I talk about this on Tuesday, no matter the time of year, NFL will be talked about for at least 15 to 20 minutes, if not more. But, you know what I mean? I do have to find other loves throughout the year. Usually it ends up landing on a UFC. I try to get into hockey, basketball around this time of year as well. Try to keep up with those. But nonetheless, it kind of definitely slows down here. I try to get more guests on. Try to be more fun, more free-flowing in the football offseason. It hurts, man. Football being over hurts. It's the most bittersweet day of the year is the Super Bowl. Got to wait till August. We'll have all these fun rumors. Who will be where? Kirk Cousins, where's he going? Aaron Rodgers, is he going to go on another darkness retreat and go insane? There's a lot going on when you really break it down. Justin Fields, is he on the move? Yeah. Patriots, what do they do? Do they go quarterback, which I feel like they have to do? What's going on with Bill Belichick still? Shout out Saints. They did fire Pete Carmichael a while back. They signed They signed 49ers passing coordinator Clint Kubiak. Either brother or son, I can't remember which, but is related to Gary Kubiak, former NFL head coach. So, yeah, shout out my Saints. Shout out that move. Can't wait to see what the Saints do this offseason, see how we can improve and get better. Oh, my God, I just got the greatest alert ever on my phone. For you video game players, it is official. NCAA football is making a return to consoles. An official announcement has been made. The teaser trailer has officially dropped. I really want to watch this right now. I will wait the 30 minutes to be as excited as I am for that game. I've been waiting, 10 years now? Wow, that made me feel old. 11 years? I've been waiting 11 years for this. That game was my child. I still play NCAA 14 to this day, boys. To this day. To this day. I cannot wait for NCAA to come back, man. I cannot wait. Now I am excited. EA will have my money this summer. I am purchasing that game. I cannot wait. All right, I'm going to move on now, though. I was excited to move on. I am going to move on now. I am going to move on to this weekend in, where is it located? I don't even know where the event's located. That's bad on there. Oh, in Anaheim, California. We will see the reigning, undisputed featherweight champion, arguably pound for pound best fighter in the world, Alexander the Great Volkanovski, face off against Ilia Topuria in a 5-round bout for that championship. Also on this card, some notable fights, and I'm gonna start from the lowest notable fight, and then the last thing we'll talk about is this main event that obviously we all want to talk about. So let's start with the notable fights on the lower cards, which is really the biggest one that's not on the main card is, well, before I get into this fight, I do want to shout out Justin Tafa. He's fighting someone I don't really know about, but Tafa's a dog. So that fight is before this Lemos fight I'm going to get into. Definitely tune into that. Tafa is a heavyweight. He's kind of like Tuivasa. He's kind of like a younger, newer Tuivasa. Mark Hunt, those Australian types that just like to stand and bang and brawl and bang and brawl and sleep people. So look for Tafa. Look for him to get a knockout, hopefully. I'm a big Tafa guy. So next we got Lemos versus Mackenzie Dern. Lemos is coming off in her last fight. If I remember correctly, it was, yeah. So her last fight was that co-main event against Wei Li, where she ended up losing by decision. Wei Li just had an absolute field day in that fight. Lemos looked like, as good as Lemos is, didn't look like she very much belonged in the same octagon as Wei Li. So since that fight has not fought, since 292 back in August of last year, has not fought, was supposed to fight Tatiana Suarez earlier this, or actually was supposed to fight Tatiana Suarez on this card specifically. Tatiana Suarez, if I remember correctly, got a staph infection, if I know correctly, or like a bad flu. She had to back out. So Lemos ends up fighting Mackenzie Dern, who Mackenzie Dern is coming off. Her last fight was a loss to Andrade at 295 back in November. And I remember watching this fight when we saw Dern just didn't look like herself in that fight, was eating a lot of punches, was standing up with Andrade, which is a weird choice to make. So nonetheless, like, definitely a weird fight out of Mackenzie Dern. Look for her to get back in the win column. Look for her to take this fight to the ground against a Lemos, who's a very similar fighter to Andrade. And yeah, if she goes into this, if Dern goes into this fight with the same game plan she did against Andrade, there's no way that she comes out of this with a victory. Just, if any of you saw that fight, someone like Jessica Andrade has, like, Andrade has the hardest hitting hands I've ever seen in women's UFC, period. Outside of maybe Amanda Nunes. But Amanda Nunes didn't have, like, these logs for hands like Jessica Andrade has. And Lemos got some hard hands, too. She got some fast hands that hit hard. And if Mackenzie Dern goes into the fight with the same game plan and wants to stand up with her, with poor boxing defense, just eating strikes, she's going to look like an idiot again. She's going to look stupid, and she's going to get rocked and knocked out again. So you got to change that game plan. You got to do what Mackenzie Dern is best at if you're Mackenzie Dern, and that's take it down. Lemos isn't amazing on the ground. She's not bad, but it's not her strong suit. So you definitely want to take this fight to the ground. You want to control it. You want it to be slow, but I don't know. It's going to be a weird fight. It's going to be a close fight. It's going to be a good fight. It's all how Mackenzie Dern plays it. If Mackenzie Dern could take this to the ground, I think she could win by submission. I do. I think she could genuinely get out of this by submission. But nonetheless, besides that, like, I don't really know. So the next fight on this card is, I talked about it, is the Kopylov versus Hernandez fight. Don't know much about these two. I know Kopylov is a pretty heavy-handed guy, if I remember correctly. Yeah, won his last three fights by knockout. So definitely a dude to look out for. The fight will be exciting because I think Hernandez likes to stand up too. Again, I'm not gonna act like I know these two guys. They're not two guys I've seen much of. Very even fighters too. Both 6 foot with a 75-inch. Both sitting at 185. You know what I mean? 2-year age difference. So two very similar fighters here. Two very similar points in their career. So nonetheless, I'm excited for it, but I don't know what to expect. I don't know how these guys are gonna fight. I don't know if it's gonna be patient. I don't know if it's gonna be a barn burner. I really don't know. I mean, Hernandez sitting at 11-2, Kopylov sitting at 12-2. I think it'll be a good fight. I don't know much about it. I think it will be a good fight, definitely. Now, these last 4 fights of this card are all bangers. And I know bangers. I've seen a good amount of UFC fights. I'm not going to call myself an expert. There's a lot of people out there who have seen a lot more UFC than me. But I've seen enough UFC where, on paper, I know bangers. And these 4 fights, these are bangers. You got Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo in the bantamweight division. So Henry Cejudo is going up a little bit. Is an interesting fight here. Fighting Aljo's boy, Merab, over here for bantamweight. Merab 16-4, Henry 16-3. Both very good fighters. I was watching. Who was it? Was it Izzy I was watching break it down? Either earlier today or earlier this week. And Izzy breaks it down as this: is Merab is going to try to backpack Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo is going up in weight. Henry Cejudo doesn't usually fight at 135. He's not used to fighting 135ers. This is something new for him late in his career. Dvalishvili's 2 inches taller than him, 4 years younger than him, 4-inch reach, 4-inch reach advantage. He's gonna. It's the way Merab fights too, as well. Is he's gonna try to backpack him? He is. He's gonna try to sit there, use the Islam technique, use these techniques that people in the UFC they call it backpacking, and I'm just gonna go on you. I'm gonna get back position. I'm just gonna use my weight. I'm just gonna outweigh you. And all that's going to do is make you tired and tired and tired until I either knock you out and beat you by strikes or you slip up and I slip a submission in. So that is more likely than not going to be Dvalishvili's game plan. I completely agree with that. When Izzy said that, it seemed obvious, especially with him and Aljo being boys. Aljo treating Cejudo the exact same when they fought. So I think it's going to be that type of fight. I think it's going to be like that boring type of fight, but nonetheless, if you like fighting, these are two vets. These are two good fighters, two people who are at top of the bantamweight division at the end of the day. Like Cejudo, Triple C's a legend. Merab's been having a run recently. I know he had that loss early last year, but nonetheless, like both fighters are very, very good, very talented, very well known. Cejudo is, as much as I'm sitting here saying Dvalishvili is going to try to take it to the ground and backpack him, it's not like Henry Cejudo can't wrestle. Like, we're talking about an Olympic wrestler here. We're talking about Henry Cejudo. So it's going to be a fun fight. It's going to be one of those fun wrestling fights, a technical fight. It's going to be a lot of shoots. You know what I mean? A lot of control time. a lot of sneaking in shots on the ground, stuff like that. We'll see how it turns out, but I think it'll definitely be a very, very good fight out of the two. As much as Marab has a game plan that wins time and time and time and time and time again, I find it hard to sit here and count out Cejudo. There's part of me that just feels like Cejudo's going to win. You know what I mean? Like, there's just part of me that feels like especially after that loss, that somewhat embarrassing loss to Aljo, I just kind of feel like, yeah, I don't know. I think C's is coming out with a vengeance. I think C's is. I think he'll come out with a win, probably a decision win, but a win nonetheless. The next fight on this card is another big fight. We got Jeff Neal, who is coming off a big win over a loss. He's coming off that loss to Shakvat Rahamat, or Rachmanov, however you say it, but Shakvat is, I just say his first name. That was his last fight. He was supposed to fight Ian Gary at 292. That ended up falling through, and Ian Gary fought someone else I'm blanking on right now. But Jeff Neal coming out, getting a huge fight with Ian Gary. It was Neil Magny who took the fight. That's who it was. It was Neil Magny. And then also at 296, Ian Gary was supposed to fight Vincent Luque, which ended up falling through, who Jeff Neal did beat earlier, I think a year and a half ago, 2 years. Nonetheless, though, Jeff Neal coming off a loss to a very good opponent. And then before that, he beat Luque in 2022. So, honestly, a big test for Ian Gary in his young career. With Ian Gary's best fight, I mean, it would have been Luque, but I guess his best fight to this point is Neil Magny. So, Ian Gary is finally getting the test he deserves, sitting at 14-0. After that big knockout win over Neil Magny, after that dominant win over Neil Magny, it's going to be a good fight. Jeff Neal is not someone to count out. I think Jeff Neal's key to success here is pressure. Ian Gary is a very long guy. If you let Ian Gary, stay at space, Demetrius Johnson talks about this a lot when he breaks down fights. He talks about the void, and that's the space between fighters. Jeff Neal needs to do a good job at crossing that, but not crossing that and leaving himself open, because it's the most dangerous place to cross in fighting. And if he could get inside that reach, that is where he's going to have to win this fight against Ian Gary. Ian Gary is a very lanky guy, a very long, lanky guy. He's going to want to sit there and reach out and just tap him with these jabs. He's type, you know what I mean? He's pa. And try to just hit up the shot, that big smack hook, you know what I mean? That big something. That's how Ian Gary likes to fight. He likes to one, two. 1, 2, 1. Like, that's the combos he likes. He likes those simple, like, piece you up from a distance. I got longer arms than you. You can't get in my reach type of fighting. So that's the type of fighting he's going to do, and Jeff Neal's got to shut that down. He's got to get inside. He's got to really show up, really battle, and try to get inside Jeff Neal. On to the big co-main event. We got Robert Whitaker, good old Bobby Knuckles, versus Paulo Costa. This one should be fun. Two guys who like to stand up, two guys with hard hands. Robert Whitaker coming off that loss to DDP, now middleweight champion DDP. So that loss looks slightly better for Whitaker, if I'm going to be honest. These two fighters are very similar, an inch and a half reach advantage for Whitaker, but 1 inch height advantage for Costa. Only a year. Whitaker's only a year his elder. Very, very, very excited to see this fight. Can we finally see Paulo Costa get in the goddamn octagon? Is something that I'm very excited and really interesting to see. He's had like 3 of his last 5 fights canceled, 3 of his last 4 maybe, or 4 of his last 5 fights canceled. Like, this dude has been struggling to get in the octagon, injury after injury. It'll be good to see him back in the octagon. He's only fought twice since his loss to Izzy, and I think that was, 2022? Early 2021? And it's a win versus Luke Rockhold and a loss to Marvin Vettori, who that was Robert Whitaker's last win, was a decision over Vettori. So definitely an interesting one here. Yeah, this one should be honestly such an entertaining fight. I think it's only a 3-round bout, but two veterans in this division. I remember when Paulo Costa went to go fight Izzy, and he was like, that dude. Coming into the UFC, and then he got slept by Izzy. So I'm going to take Whitaker. I said the same thing against DDP when Whitaker was fighting DDP. I was proven wrong. I like Bobby Knuckles in this fight, though. It's Robert Whitaker. I hate to bet against him. He's one of my favorite fighters. Coming off a loss, too, to the current champ. I think he's going to try to get a win and maybe try to fight for that rematch. He needs to win another fight if he wants the rematch for that. That's why I said fight for a rematch. But, yeah, I think this is going to be really entertaining. And then finally, the night will end in Anaheim, California, with your main event of the evening. Alexander the Great Volkanovski versus the up-and-comer out of Georgia, not Georgia like the state, Georgia the country, Ilia Topuria, the youngin sitting at 14-0, trying to come up and make his name for himself. Ilia currently sitting at 6-0 in the UFC, 14-0 professionally. His last 2 wins are over Bryce Mitchell and Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett was a decision win. The Bryce Mitchell was technically a submission win, but I was rewatching that fight earlier, and that was one of those like knockout submissions where it was like he like slept, like he knocked him down, and he was kind of out of it, and he just dropped down on him, and instead of throwing punches, he slipped into like a choke because the dude was still scrambling. So nonetheless, 2 very, very, very extremely impressive wins. You see the way Ilia Topuria, the way he fights is very interesting. He's a very good boxer. He's a very good stand-up fighter. I love the way he stands up. Big on head movement. You saw a lot more in the Bryce Mitchell fight than you did the Josh Emmett fight, but it has this I'll use the terms that Demetrius Johnson used just to make it simple. He called it XYZ head movement, where his head is never in the same spot. He's always going XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. And he's always moving with it. His head's having a, and that's hard to hit, man. That's hard to hit, and it's smooth to see too. It's very entertaining to see when he's slipping and slipping and slipping, and then throws a nice hook in there. And on that with Ilia, I mean, he's got great strike defense. He's got the best among active featherweights right now, and he's got really, really good fast hands. They're not like these types of stone for hands that you see with Pereira. It's more of these fast hands that are coming so fast that they have such velocity behind them that they're that powerful. You saw it a lot in that Bryce Mitchell fight. The combinations that Ilia is able to put together are very, very impressive. He's able to go 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, and he throws all these crazy like body shots, like mixing it up, going high, low, low, like a lot of good like just strikes and being active, and he's very, very good on his feet. He's not terrible on the ground. He's a lot better on his feet. Also, though, his best fight is Josh Emmett and Bryce Mitchell, and now he's fighting Alexander Volkanovski. Now, Alexander Volkanovski has lost 2 of his last 3 fights, but 2 of those fights are to Islam Makhachev. Right? Those 2 losses are both to Islam Makhachev. Alexander has not lost a featherweight fight in the UFC. He went away, fought Islam, lost by decision, came back, beat Yair for the interim belt, was like, you're not interim, I'm the champ, I'm back. Went back, fought Islam, and is coming back to defend his belt. This man Volkanovski's a tank, first of all. Let's give this man appreciation. This man is a constant fighter. Just fights. He just likes to fight. He just enjoys to fight. He actually enjoys fighting. And he's so good. I think this has the chance to be actually a really good fight with what I've seen out of Ilia Topuria. But if I'm Alexander Volkanovski, I want to wipe the floor with this kid. I want to prove that there's levels to this. That's what I need to do if I'm Volk. Excuse me. But yeah, I need to prove that there's levels to this. Like 100%. There's 100%. There's like you need to. You need to prove there's levels. But like you're sitting there. You're almost 10 years older. You're 8 years older. Inch shorter. You got an 1.5 reach advantage though. If I'm Volk, I'm coming out there and I need to outclass this man. That's what's going on in my head. I think he can. I think he will. Especially after those fights with Islam and then how he looked against Yair. I think this should be a very, very, very good fight. Because, yeah, like, Topuria's last fight was Josh Emmett. As much as I don't hate Josh Emmett, I got nothing against Josh Emmett. But also, like, I'm sitting here and I look at Volk's last couple of fights, and it's like, I'm not, like, because I saw Sean Strickland beat Izzy when I never thought that was going to happen. Like, you sit here, you look at Volk, and it's like he fought Islam, he fought Yair, he fought Islam. That's all. That's just 2023. 2022, he beat the Korean Zombie and Max Holloway. Ortega in 21. Like, I guess, yeah, the run's got to slow down at some point, but the names that he has beat already outclass what Topuria has done yet. But I do see the skills that Topuria can catch him. 110%, especially after that chin getting weakened after this last Islam fight. Islam knocking him out for the first time in his career. Maybe he slips up and Ilia catches him. Ilia's got the hands to do it. I think there's a chance. I think this fight is going to be entertaining. I think both of them like to fight. So I don't think Volkanovski's going to try to wrestle him the whole time. I think Volkanovski's going to try to stand up with him a little bit to give himself a little confidence there. But I think this one's going to be extremely entertaining, if I'll be honest with you. I really do. So, yeah, that's it. Football season, sadly, is over, guys. UFC 298 is what we are now looking forward to on weekends, our UFC events, with 298 starting it this Saturday in Anaheim, California. Not only that, basketball season is underway. I know we're talking about basketball. We got St. John's with a big game against Seton Hall in UBS this weekend. I will be announcing that game on WSJU Radio for those of you, so definitely tune in here. When it comes to professional basketball, the Knicks, they lost last night to the Magic. I was watching that at the gym. That one was rough. They actually lost. After that, they went on that little bit of a win streak. They lost to the Lakers. They have lost 4 straight. 5 of their last 6 counting that Lakers game. So on a little bit of a slump here. They play the Celtics on Saturday. That one will definitely be tough. Saturday night in New York, they play the Celtics, then the Pistons, so they try to get it back together. Yeah, we got All-Star break coming up soon, I'm pretty sure, for basketball. I think that's either this weekend or next. So that one should be fun. Is that this weekend, actually? Because then that next game is not on this Saturday, that Celtics game. So, yes, All-Star break is this weekend. That should be fun. Then the Knicks come back and play the Celtics on the 24th. Yeah, on the 24th is when they play the Celtics. So that should be fun with the no-scoot, the three-point contest, all of that. Yeah, a lot going on in music for you music fans. Definitely check it out. A lot going on. A lot of fun. And a lot of fun going on in sports. Baseball season coming up. So, yeah. Starting next week, we're going to have a little more freestyle on the show, a little less collected, a little more willy-nilly and kind of just talking to y'all. So I hope you guys enjoy that. I'll be back on Tuesday, definitely. For those of you listening on this Thursday slot, I'm thinking about picking it up as well. So maybe I'll start getting in here on Thursdays, having a couple guests, having a couple people in here with me just to switch it up, switch up the vibe a little bit, have a little more fun. But that is all I will have for everybody today. For those of you on the YouTube, for those of you who tune in later, thank you for checking it out. Please subscribe, check out the video, check out all my socials. For those of you listening on radio, check the Log Show on YouTube. Tune into the live streams there. If you don't want to listen on radio, if you want to follow me on socials, all my socials are listed under the video description, so check those out. Yeah, I had a blast today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'm Logan. This is WSJU Radio. I will talk to y'all soon.